use the Matrix.
Hi, and welcome back to a brand new video of the Targeted Individual Program, Targeted Individual Experience. Now, it's been a while since I have done a video in this format, but tonight I had to, because of the targeting that has been happening over the Indigenous Remembrance Weekend. I don't call it Thanksgiving, but it's the Indigenous Americans Remembrance holiday. And I don't celebrate the genocide of any people. So what I do as far as this holiday is to give reverence and to remember the Native Americans who lost their lives due to these savages, evil, criminalistic, I should say, and psychopathic individuals known as the Europeans that came to America. Okay, and before white Americans get all in a tizzy, always remember, if you look at and study the history of those that came to the United States from way of Britain or the United Kingdom, it wasn't the best and brightest, but it was the worst of those groups. Okay? It was the worst. It was the criminals, it was the mentally insane, it was the vagrants, the vagabonds, the thieves, the murderers, the rapists. These were the first settlers that came to the United States. And as far as the pilgrims, they may call themselves pilgrims, but there were a bunch of religious fanatics, again, mentally ill, psychopathic in nature. Okay? And so, like I said, when you understand true history, you begin to see things differently, and you begin to see things the way you should see them. Right? Like, we don't celebrate these holidays, particularly when it comes to certain holidays that celebrate the destruction, the genocide of any group of people. Not going to do it. So, for me and for my kids, we give reverence and remembrance to the Native Americans that were brutally, viciously, almost wiped out. Okay? So, over the holiday weekend, they were sending me subliminal message. Again, they like to rehash these themes about bigoted and all this stuff like that. And, I had to, always defend myself and defend my position. Like I said, I don't hate anybody that respect me, that wants to see me do good, who wants to see me healthy, physically, mentally, who are and is kind, nice to me. But I do dislike those who dislike me. I do hate those who hate me. I will not respect those who don't respect me. Understand that, okay? So it doesn't matter if you're white, black, whatever color, whatever ethnicity you are. If you don't like me because of my skin color, if you don't like me because I'm black, because I'm a man, right? And I have certain principles that I hold. If you don't like me because of those things, don't expect me to love you. Like I said, I'm not Jesus in your Bible. I'm not that person. But even Jesus tell you that I did not come to bring peace, but I came with a sword. So this idea that Jesus was some sort of peaceful individual who come to spread love throughout the world. That's the lie white people tell you, because they don't spread love. Look at their history and what they've done throughout the world. It wasn't based on love. It was based on land, the conquering of people's land, the theft of their resources, and the enslavement of those people. Okay? And it's a history that they still continue to operate and engage in throughout Africa. Okay? In particular. All right? So let's dispel this myth once and for all, and let's dive into the truth. And again, show you guys who the liars are, who the people who deceive others, who the devils are. Okay? So, no, I'm not bigoted. And then what they'll do, I went to my Facebook page, and they'll send, somebody like my page. When I click it, I say, who's this person? There's a picture of a black woman and a white man holding a newborn baby. And I'm like, okay, what's that supposed to be? I always say, and I say this, love who you want to love. But as a black person and as black people, we need to be very careful when it comes to engaging in any kind of relationship with white people. Not to say that you can't love a white person, marry a white person, have kids with white people. I mean, it's happening, right? It's happened. Okay, it will continue to happen. But what I do say is that as a black person, if you are involved in a relationship with a white person, intimate relationship with a white person, and you are having sex, and that white person is calling you the N-word while having sex, and that person wants to play the slave master role, and for a lot of black women, they get off, excuse me, as well as white men and white women, they get off by engaging in these sort of sex race play. Okay? And so when I talk about these things, I'm not talking about these things because I dislike white people. I just want black people to understand and to know who they are in a relationship with. A lot of us tend to be blinded by whiteness because we've been conditioned to see white people as the standard. So when white people engage in particularly sexual fetishes of black men and black women, it is not of love, okay? It is a power dynamics, okay? It is wanting to engage in saying things and doing things to black men and black women that they would normally not get away with, if publicly, by calling a black woman, the the N word, I should say NB, right? And for black men, white women, when they talk about BBC and all these things, look, they're making all this noise now. Why? Because I am doing my video, so this is what they do. Since I've been here, I wasn't engaged in any sort of video. They were relatively quiet. As soon as I start to do my video, then they started engaging in this very loud type of speaking. Right? This is another way in which they try to interrupt, engage in this sort of interference. Right? But I'm going to let it go. I'm still stay on topic. Anyhow, right? So this is what I say, okay? There have been plenty, excuse me, of research done. And it's not just black people. You have Asian women who also have written articles about the fetishization of white men that they have when it comes to dating and marrying Asian women, okay? And anybody who engage in these sort of race play don't really love you. They don't respect you. What they see you as is someone that they can engage in their racist tropes and racist ideas when it comes to the sexuality and having sex with a black person or an Asian person. That is what they do. Okay? So it's not love. Remember, you had white men, right, having sex with black women, having kids with black women, and then taking those kids and selling them. Okay? These men, white men, didn't love black women. Okay? They were selling their own children. But because they did not see them as their own children because they were part black, okay, it was okay to sell them. All right? So understand that mindset. So when you see particularly black women, okay, because again, black women fall for these types of race play, they tend to be the ones who also enjoy it. And it's very sickening. And they don't understand the psychological damage that they're doing to themselves in their mind by engaging in such type of behavior with these racist white men. And these white men are racist, period, when they engage in these sort of things. Okay? I mean, look at the porn industry. You have what is called cock holding, BBC. There's always this interracial play, that sort of thing, because it's fetish, fetishization of black bodies. Okay, black men and black women. All right. So, anyway, just again, I have to defend myself. And again, I have to tell you guys the truth because it's the truth, all right? So there's been plenty of research on this. There's plenty of articles about this written by black women who've dated white men, only to realize that these men didn't really see them for who they are, right? But they were just fetishizing them. Okay? Understand that. Like I said, love whoever you want to love, but make sure they love you back. Truly love you back. And that's why we have to be very careful as black people, particularly when we're dating white men and white women. That's all I'm saying. Just be very careful and don't get caught up in the material, because particularly when it comes to women get caught up in money and materialistic things. And this is why a lot of black women stay in relationships with white men who fetishize them. Okay? All right. So anyhow, so they want to call me bigoted and say I'm biased. As Dr. Amos Wilson said, being biased is not a bad thing. It only becomes a bad thing when you have power and then you use that power to disadvantage other groups of people, to enslave, murder, rape other groups of people, right? Because in fact, sometimes being biased can save your life. Okay? Again, we've seen how white people would befriend black people for what is called ritual killings. Okay? Need I talk about the black woman who spent the night with her white female so-called friends? All right? And ended up dead? And none of these women have been held accountable for her death? Need I remind you guys about the young black man who went to Greece with his white college buddies? And when he was beaten to death by a group of white men, his white friends did nothing. Need I remind you of the black woman who went to Italy with her white friends and she experienced racism in Italy, and her white friends did nothing. And when she called them out on social media, right, they said to her it wasn't their place to defend her, and that she was blowing it things out of proportion. I can go on. Okay, I can go on. So, like I said, as black people, we have been conditioned to not see the truth, and we think that everything is okay. And when it's not, and it can cost us, and sometimes do cost us our lives. Okay? But let's talk about who the real bigoted people are, who the real racist people are, and who came up with the racist system and theories to discriminate, particularly against black people. Let's talk about that. Okay? As I said, the word black people to do the car honking. They've been doing that a lot lately. And I guess it's supposed to, they might have put something in my subconscious mind. So when I say the word black people, something else supposed to, pop into my mind. But no, it's black people. I'm a black person. Okay? So, have you guys ever heard of Alexandre Dumas? So Alexandre Dumas is a black man who wrote the book The Three Musketeers. Okay? The Three Musketeers. All right? He also wrote the book The Count of Monte Cristo. How many people know that this was a black man? Okay? And people know that. Let's go to the Encyclopedia of World Biography. Let me show my screen. Okay. So, Alexandre Dumas, the French author of many plays, popular romances, and historical novel, wrote The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo. Now, growing up, I loved The Three Musketeers. I love the movie The Count of Monte Cristo, one of my favorite movies from the 80s. But as a black kid, okay, I always thought that the writer of these books were white. You see, when you want to make a people dumb, what you do is, I said dumb, the car honking. Again, I'm not dumb. Okay. I know what it is that they've done to me. They may think that they've got other people's fool, but they don't have me fool. Okay. So, like I said, all right. To make a people dumb, what you do is that you hide their true history from them. And then you give them the version of the history that you, the conqueror, create to teach them that their group have not contributed anything towards humanity, civilization, and the world. When the facts is that black people, black Africans, gave the world, the ancient world, everything. We educated the ancient world because black people move out of Africa, settle all over the world, and through environmental adaptation begin to change. And particularly when it comes to Europe, is that the black people from Africa that settled in Europe got caught up in the last ice age. So imagine spending a few thousand years in caves, not able to go out, right? Having to fight for everything, the knowledge no longer being passed down, so you become dumb. Okay? And then with the melting of the last ice age, you now find yourself able to travel. Okay. Not only that, but you also start to plant corn or whatever vegetation that's available. But understand that thousands of years in, before in Africa, Africa was at the height of its civilization. The building of the pyramids, okay, the invention of mummification, creation of science, philosophy, mathematics, chemistry, right? Architecture. And so when these new groups of people who were the descendants of African people who went through an environmental change to adapt to the cold climate, who, because of not being able to go outside, their skin color became lighter and lighter as they continued to have offsprings. And those offsprings were able to be born with a lighter complexion because of the lack of vitamin D. Okay. The straightening of the hair, the nose now being thinner in order to be able to breathe in that cold climate without freezing your lungs. Okay. Like I said, you know, you do a DNA test on everybody on this planet, and you'll find that they all lead back to Africa. Okay? See, that's the truth that the white races have hid. They've lied. They've come up with all these theories. They've created fake skeleton remains, right? You know what I'm saying? They went through every effort to lie, to deceive, to cheat in order to hide the fact that black people were the creators of the greatest and most advanced civilization in ancient history. And they continue to lie about it today, using words like sub-Saharan African to separate Egypt from the rest of Africa, when that word was only used or was formulated in the 1900s, where you find it in books, right, that talk about sub-Saharan African, because they wanted, white races wanted to separate Egypt from the rest of Africa. But you can go to Sudan, and you will find pyramids that predate the pyramids in Egypt. Okay, shows you the steps, right? So again, you know, I'm not bigoted. I just understand the truth, and the fact that white people know that the white races know that I understand the truth and know the truth is, you know, why they attack me and try to make me out to be exactly who they are. It's called dark protection. All right. And let me tell you how vicious these people are. Right? That they will destroy your family. They will break up your relationships. They will manipulate your children. Right? Because when you're teaching your children the truth, they see your kids as a threat. But they'll see your kids as a threat regardless. But you see, now they see your kids and you as more of a threat because you know the truth. Right? And when you know the truth about who you are, who your people are, you have this confidence. And that is what they don't want us to have. Okay? Just as a TI, they want to take away your confidence. They've been doing that to black people for centuries. Okay. And with the internet now, the information is out there. They want to control it. And if they can't control it, they will try to prevent you from getting and receiving that information. And this is where the psychological conditioning comes in. This is where the coercive persuasion comes in order to deter you from learning the truth, from seeking the truth. They will try to manipulate, blackmail, and outright threaten you because they don't want you to know the truth. Okay? The truth, like this Alexandre Dumas, the French author of many plays, popular romances, and historical novels, wrote The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo. Alexandre Dumas was born on July 24, 1802, near Soissons, France, the son of a Creole general of the French Revolutionary Armies. His grandfather was from a noble family, and his grandmother had been a Dominican slave. Dumas' father died when he was 4 years old, leaving the family with very little money. Dumas was not a very good student, but his handwriting was noticeably beautiful, and he studied to work as a notary, a public official who witnesses the signing of important documents and make them official. He also began writing musical comedies and then historical plays in a collaboration, working together with others, with a poet friend named Adolphe de Lavin. Historical subject, as well as his ability to collaborate, were to be permanent elements of Dumas' work during his career. Dumas then found work as a secretary to the Duke of Orleans, later King Louis Philippe, 1773 to 1850, in Paris, France. He read and attended the theater as much as he could during his time off. He was greatly influenced by the works of William Shakespeare, 1564, 1616, and wrote his first play in 1825 and 1826. Others followed when Henry III Essarco, 1829, bringing him great success and popularity. The Revolution of 1830 slowed down Dumas' writing, and he became a strong supporter of the Marquis de Lafayette. His political activities were viewed unfavorably by the new king, his former boss, and he was forced to leave France for a time. A series of amusing travel books resulted from his period of exile. When Dumas returned to Paris, he began writing a series of historical plays. By 1851, he had written alone or in collaboration with others more than 20 plays. He also began writing fiction at this time, first short stories and then novels. In collaboration with Auguste Marquis, he wrote Les Trois Marqueteers. I can't pronounce this, I'm sorry. 1844, The Three Musketeers, being Anne's Appears, 1845, 20 years later, and Le Vicomte de Vigoloni, 1850, Le Conte di Monte Cristo, 1846. The Count of Monte Cristo was also a product of this period. Dumas worked with many collaborators who helped him with the outline of his romances. The scale of his fiction factory has often been exaggerated, although at least 1,000 works were published under his own name. Most were due to his own hard work and amazing imagination. Dumas' work were received with enthusiasm by his royal readers, and he earned a lot of money. He could never earn enough to keep up with his spending habits, however. Among his problem was his estate of Monte Cristo in Saint Germain en Laye, France, which attract many hangers-on and female admirers who Dumas ended up supporting. Okay, so I'm not going to read all of this, okay, But here, two of the most famous books written by a black man. And during my young life, never knew. Never knew. Okay? Never knew. Why? Because it was hidden. It was hidden. And those that knew about it, and particularly black scholars, and were teaching other black people about it, guess what white people did? Destroy their lives, right? Call them crazy. They did everything to make sure that they discredit these black scholars. They took away their livelihood, and most ended up dying in poverty, right? That's the racist shit that these racist white people do. Black people don't do those things, right? As a whole, without the covert manipulation of white people, in which black people will engage in this sort of behavior against one of their own. I'll say it that way. Okay. So how many of us didn't know this? Not also that, but we also know that the so-called Mozart, who, you see all these plays and they talk about Mozart, but there was a black man who preceded Mozart, who actually trained Mozart. Okay? And he was more popular than Mozart. You've never heard of him. Okay? I think they were actually making a movie about him now. I forgot his name. But again, it just goes to show you that the lies, the deceptions, the cover up, the hiding the truth from black people is what white people do. And they do it very well. Okay? This is why they, again, want to control the information on the internet. They want to be the one to have control of the information. See, when you want to get certain books, particularly certain old books that was written, hundreds of years ago that speak the truth, you can't buy it. Those things cost thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. Okay? And in the financial situation which most black people find ourselves in, again, this is done purposely. You can't afford these things, but you can find those very rare books digitized on the internet. Okay. Now let's talk about another famous writer, okay, named Alexander Pushkin, who is considered to be the father of Russian literature. Another black man. Okay. Alexander Pushkin is known as the quintessential Russian writer. What many readers don't know is that he took particular inspiration from his African great-grandfather, General Abraham Petrovich Ganibal. According to Anne Lounsbury, a scholar of Russian literature, bare credential, African heritage, and a personal link to Peter the Great were all crucial to Pushkin's identity. Playing up his connection with Ganibal, the author adopted the nickname Africanet, the African. His connection with his relative showed up in other ways too. Now, you will have people in Russia today who would say Alexander Pushkin was a white Russian. Okay? This is how Europeans have been conditioned to view black people so negative that they will turn a black writer who is the father of Russian literature and make him white. Okay? So there's racism all over Europe. There's racism all over Africa. And in Africa, it's usually black people being racist against other black people. And I say that because of the mindset, right? And because when you have in African countries where you have a ruling party who might be Christian or Muslim, they will deny other religious believers opportunities. So that in itself is a form of racism, but not in the way the West define racism. Okay, their racism is based on not the color of their skin, but the religious belief. Okay, so Hannibal, sometimes written Hannibal, was very young when he was kidnapped from Africa and sent to Constantinople as a slave. From there, a Serbian count named Sava Vasovic brought him to the court of Peter the Great in St. Petersburg. The Tsar became very fond of the young boy. He made him his godson, conferring upon him the patriarch Petrovich, son of Peter, and sent him to study in France. By the time Peter the Great's daughter Elizabeth took the throne, Hannibal's rank and accomplishment allowed him noble status. But in a 1742 letter to the Russian Senate, Hannibal insists that his noble status was linked to his father being an African chief. I am of African original, of an as an illustrious local nobility. Was born in the city of Legon on lands belonging to my father, who reigned, furthermore, over 2 other cities. This appeal is the only recorded testimony of his African origins. The search for Legon began in the 19th century, accumulating historian Dr. Dugoni, I can't pronounce his last name, late 20th century discovery. The African Institute, the Russian Academy of Science, and the Pushkin Museum in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and can't even pronounce that one either. So again, just to show you an important figure in European history, another important figure in European history, black men, 2 black men, never heard of. And again, also the other black man who predated Mozart and actually taught Mozart. So Mozart's Symphony Number 9 has been said to, excuse me, be a plagiarized version of this black man's work. Okay, and I'm sorry I forgot his name. I wasn't even going to talk about him because I forgot, but I just remembered. But again, we see how, as a black person, when I was younger, didn't know these things. And this is important. So this is why I teach my kids these things, so that they know history and they know contributions that black people have always had, even during slavery, before and after. Okay? Or before Africans were enslaved, I should say. Before and after. Okay? And so when I start to teach my kids about these things, they will microwave us and have my kids targeting me, doing all these hand signals and stuff like that. And particularly when we're watching a documentary about the history of Africa, that's when you'll see that I'll see and experience the microwave, in which, again, they'll have my kids target me. Okay? Because they don't want black people to learn their history, their true history, not the history that they lied to us about. Okay? So again, who's biased? Who's bigoted? Okay? So let's see. Okay? Now, do you guys understand and know that the majority of men who have been released through the so-called Innocence Project, the vast majority of those are black men? Okay? And this is an article from today. New York prosecutor moved to vacate unjust conviction of 2 men after nearly 3 decades. So here we go again. We see black men who were convicted because of racist cops, racist DA who knew the truth, but who coerced witnesses, who threatened witnesses to identify these men for crimes they didn't commit. And these men basically lost decades of their lives. They went in as young men and came out as old men. Okay? And this is so common now. And it makes me angry. And it should make each and every one of us angry too. And I keep saying, how many more? How many more? Okay? So, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg moved to vacate 2 unjust homicide convictions of 2 men who spent nearly 3 decades in prison. Now, this is the same district attorney who is pursuing charges against Jonathan Major, even though it has been proven that his girlfriend lied about him assaulting her. Okay? And she was arrested, but they refused to prosecute her. But they still continue to prosecute Jonathan Major. Same district attorney. I want you to understand the mindset of these Negropeans. Okay? What he's trying to do is gain favor with white people by pursuing the charges against Jonathan Major, even though Jonathan Major, the evidence shows that he's innocent of the crimes he's being charged with. Meanwhile, okay, again, he had no choice on this matter, but he's going to use this to take out his black card. And for black people, I said, don't believe it. Stop voting for these Sambos. Okay? Because he himself probably have put black men in prison that didn't commit the crime. Okay? Black people who are Sambos in certain position will behave just like or even worse than the white racists. Because they put their political careers above honor, duty, truth, righteousness. And particularly, they use the same card to advance their career, which is unjustly prosecuting black men and going after black men to gain favor in the eyes of racist white people. Okay? So, the Manhattan DA office vacated the conviction of Wayne Gerdine, 49, for a 1996 murder conviction, and Jabbar Walker, 49, for a 1998 double murder conviction based on newly discovered evidence. Newly discovered evidence. No, they knew. They knew. Okay? I'm not even going to read all this because this is, it's too much for me. It's like I get angry when I read these things. And it's the way how everybody should react when they read these things. Doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, what color you are. We should all be upset and mad when these things are happening. And it happens so frequently to black people, particularly black men. It happens so frequently. Okay? I mean, it really is incredible. It really is incredible. But this is something that we as black men, we know all too well. And yet, those in our community, the Negropeans, okay, act as if these things are not happening because they're in church on a Sunday, burying their head in the Bible, pretending as if everything is good and they're so blessed, right? While they don't see the truth and they ignore the truth. Okay, let me put this here because I want to, again, show you guys who the real racists are and who the real bigots are. Okay, so this is from 2022. Retired detective in Kansas City drug kingpin charged with conspiring to run an underage sex trafficking operation. You know, I keep saying this over and over again. If you want to look for where the predators are, where the domestic abusers are, where the drug kingpins are, look within the police department all across the United States, where the dark triad personality types run rampant in police agency, whether they be the FBI, whether they be the security agencies, whether they be the Department of Defense, whether it be state and local police. This is where you'll find the majority of the dark triad personality types. Okay? And this man, and how I got to hear about this story, I was watching Roland Martin today. And he was interviewing a black woman who, you know, she believed that this police officer killed her sister. Okay? These are white men preying on black men and black women. White men with guns and badges who made and advanced their career off of the injustices that they've done to black people. Black men, black women, black boys, black girls. Okay? And these people are highly decorated. All right? Now, what happened to these arrests that these officers made and their conviction of these so-called suspects? America like to say that it is a country of law and justice, but not for black people. A veteran homicide detective in Kansas City, Kansas, conspired with a local drug kingpin to help run a sex trafficking operation involving underage girls, prosecutor alleged in an explosive indictment on seal Monday. He's retired. Okay, Roger Golubsky, a retired 35-year veteran of Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, allegedly used his position to shield the operation from law enforcement investigations, according to the 3-count indictment filed in U.S. District Court in Topeka. Golubsky entered a plea of not guilty, said his attorney, Chris Joseph. I mean, you guys need to read this stuff. It's you know, and again, conspiring against rights. I talk about this. This is what the predators in the New York City Police Department have been doing to myself as well as other TIs here in New York. Conspiracy against our rights. Okay, trying to and also involuntary servitude using coercive means. Okay, and for some women, we've known as TIs who even give their testimony on certain TI's program. We talked about how people will come into their house, drug them when they're sleeping to have sex with them. Okay, and many people won't believe this. We buried our head in the sky or in the sand. Okay. So again, and I can go. I mean, there's tons and tons. You know, like I said, I always, whenever they try to run these narratives, I'm gonna keep speaking the truth, showing you the truth as to who the real predators are, as to who the real drug dealers are, who the real serial murderers are, serial rapists, pedophiles. All right, they're on the police force. Okay, this man, 35-year veteran. How many innocent people, particularly innocent black men, he's put in jail? How many innocent black people, men, women, that he's killed? And now that he's retired, possibly. I mean, there's another article that said that he's sick, possibly, almost dying, what have you. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. Incredible. Okay. And listen to this, right? It says Roger maintained his innocence and looked forward to clearing his name from these decade-old and uncorroborated allegations. Okay, the sex trafficking operation, which was run out of an apartment complex in the 1990s by a local crack dealer named Cecil Brooks and two other men, and then you have our own brothers, my own brothers, engaging in this thing. But I can make some excuses, but not that. Yeah, you dealing drugs, I can make excuses for that. Right? This was something that the U.S. government planned, orchestrated. Okay, and so when you deprive a group of people of, and particularly the men, economic opportunities, they know the U.S. government know what they were doing by bringing crack cocaine into the black community. They know. It was a plan from the beginning. And the money that they confiscated from these drug busts, they use it to fund their illegal wars all over the world, and particular South America. So they know. They know. We didn't know. Black people, we didn't know. I keep saying, black people were, even though we're within the society, but we're also in a laboratory that is outside of a laboratory. Right? If you understand what I mean. Okay? So again, let me speak the truth again. I gotta keep, putting these racists on blast, right? Try to say I'm bigoted and I don't like white people. No, I don't like white people who don't like me because I'm black and who have done things to manipulate, who have engaged in covert things to try to control me, to set me up, because for whatever reason. Okay. And again, to disprove their lies, okay, we're going to go to science. Okay, we're not going to go to no Bible that talks about, the reason why all the races were created is because, because of the Tower of Babel, and God destroyed the tower, and therefore, human beings scattered all over the world and become different groups of people. I mean, and people really believe this shit. It's like religious people really believe this nonsense, even though we have the evidence and the proof to show where skin color comes from, to show how Europeans became the way that they are, how Asians became the way that they are. Because I'm going to show you, you have black tribes in Africa called the Sans people, in which these were where Asian people came from. You see them with the slanted eyes, and their DNA is 100% African. Okay? This is why I say, in America, they don't educate you. And almost half of Americans are illiterate. Over half of Americans are adult. Okay? They're illiterate. I mean, come on. Okay? So, this is understanding evolution. One route to lighter skin, two different continent. See, when I look at my Caucasian brothers and sisters, though they are distant relatives, okay, there's nothing special about them to me. Okay, except for the fact that they're cunning, they're deceptive, they're liars, they're manipulators, right? But I don't hold it against them because I understand where those traits come from. So they're just being who they are. We as black people and other groups of non-white people need to understand who they are. Okay? And not the lies and the deceptive imagery that they put out to the rest of the world to believe in. And again, I'm just going to speak the truth. Go and get the book, The Iceman Inheritance by Michael Bradley. One of the most important books anybody, whether you're white, black, or whatever, should read. Okay? In order for you to get the understanding of how Europeans are the way they are. Okay? So, skin color is one of the most obvious physical characteristics that distinguishes one person's appearance from another's. However, the trait itself, its genetic basis, and its evolutionary history are complex. Human skin color ranges, not just between black and light on a single axis, but over a whole landscape of shades and hues, even within a single region like Africa. See, what the racists used to do, these racist anthropologists and archaeologists, they will pick this kind of black man, the one you see with the red and blue scarf around his neck, right? And they will say, this is your typical African, okay? But then they don't show you this African. And if they do, they'll say, well, he's actually white. Okay? Just like they did with the Egyptians. Okay, where you have black Egyptians, they classify them as white. Okay? Because they may have a lighter skin complexion. But they're black. They have woolly hair. Okay? Because in order to steal black people history And for them to continue to make money off of it, they have to whitewash it. And then here comes the Arabs who, will say that that's our history. Yeah, but I don't see you practicing even today any of the practices of the ancient Egyptians. But I can show you many places in Africa that do. Right? And when you look at the Medu Neter, you look at the so-called hieroglyphics, clearly they were black people, but they will gaslight you and I into saying that they were white people and they were Arab people. When we know the Arabs didn't come into Egypt until the 7th century. Okay? So we know the history. But because they're in the position of power in that region, and because the Africans have been reduced from a great people into one that has been manipulated and divided, they can gaslight us and we say nothing. And when they understand that we know the truth, they will do things to take our lives or to discredit us. Okay? This is how sick these people are. Okay, so even within a single region like Africa, skin color varies widely among different populations. Fittingly, many different genes are known to affect a person's skin tone. Last month, scientists announced that a gene version usually thought of as a European gene for playing a major role in explaining. Hold on a sec. Okay, so again, the further they go back into history, whether it be genetics, archaeology, you'll find African people, black Africans at the beginning of everything. Okay? It's like the Asians, the Chinese talk about Peking man. They will, recently, they finally had to admit that we all have a common ancestors from Africa. Black. Okay? Now let's talk about the Sands people. Okay? So, again, when you understand the truth, okay, it becomes harder for them to manipulate you. Okay? So, let me continue. All right? So it says, last month, scientists announced that a gene version usually thought of as a European gene for playing a major role in explaining the light skin of Europeans was also favored among Christian population native to South Africa that have relatively light skin in comparison to many other Africans. It's like Africans have the most diverse variations of phenotype. You have Africans that are very dark, broad nose, full lips, right? Then you have also Africans that are very light, broad nose, full lips. You have Africans that are very dark, thin nose, thin lips. You have Africans that are very light, thin nose, thin lips. Okay? You have Africans who are truly what they call albinos, right? Africans are the only group of people, black African only group of people that can give birth to all skin variations. Okay? And I'm not talking about an African having sex with a European or Asian. I mean, two African people, even very dark, can give birth to an albino, can give birth to a black baby with blonde hair or with blue eyes, or with green eyes. Okay? It doesn't mean that African people are superior. What it means is that African people are the original people. And because of migration, birth all other group of people. Okay? And we don't see ourselves as superior in terms of saying white people are inferior. Okay? But genetically, black people have, and particularly black women, have the most genetic diversity in their DNA. So if we want to say that the only people that are superior, are black women. Okay? And that's genetically. These are facts that no one can dispute. But when Europeans, white people, not all, but most, who are racist, bigoted, and who have so much, let me rephrase that, who have that ingrained racist mindset, because we are living in a society and in a world in which white people, through their aggression, through their evil acts and brutality, conquered, most of the planet, right? They think that they are superior. So they are the standard. They're the standard for evil, viciousness, savagery. Yes, they are the standards for that. Okay? And that's no shade. That's just the truth. This is why they don't like the truth. And this is why they're conditioned, particularly us as black people, to don't like the truth about who we are as a people, what we've accomplished as a people, the contribution that we've gave to the entire world. So when we hear the truth, it turns us off. We have that feeling, ill feeling in our stomach, and particularly being so indoctrinated with religion, we don't quite understand where it comes from. And like you're saying, you need to go read about these people who call themselves Hebrews, Canaanites, and historically there are people who call themselves that. Well, as far as some of these magical things that happen in the Bible and all this stuff, didn't happen. Jesus, in terms of the Bible, didn't exist. Okay? Didn't. And again, this is going to go into my next segue, because I don't want to make this too long now. I'm going over an hour. So let me continue. Right? How and why did these geographically and physically distinct population wind up with a snippet of DNA? Where is evolution? The evolutionary history of modern human range of skin tones seem to have been shaped by competing varieties of natural selection. Melanin, the pigment responsible for darkening human skin, protects us from UV radiation, which can cause skin cancer and degrade the essential vitamin folate. However, we need some amount of UV radiation for our bodies to synthesize vitamin D, which is also important. Okay? Example, for preventing the disease rickets. Hence, skin color represents an evolutionary trade-off When selection favoring the production of vitamin D is stronger, gene versions that produce less melanin and lighter skin become more common. When selection against UV damage is stronger, gene versions producing more melanin and darker skin becomes more common. Which form of natural selection wins out is broadly influenced by geography. Near the equator, UV radiation levels are high and sun damage can be severe, so darker skin tones are generally favored. Okay, it isn't because some damn Tower of Babel, okay, which the Israelites were building while, and then God got angry and destroyed the Tower of Babel, and human beings went to different parts of the world. I mean, imagine how tall that tower has to be. Damn near have to be going into space. So come on now. Use your logic and common sense. Okay? All right. Near the pole, lack of vitamin D is the more serious problem. So lighter tones are favored. Since the Kishon live about as far from the equator as one can get in Africa, it's no surprise that gene versions conferring lighter skin became common among this group. Indeed, scientists think that when the Kishon ancestors shifted from eating vitamin D rich fish to herding, the drop in vitamin D might have further favored lighter skin shades, which let in more sun and boost vitamin D production. What was surprising was that the Kishon lighter skin traced back to the exact same gene as European lighter skin does, the gene SLC24A5. What evolutionary process explains this similarity? Okay, so just so you guys know, right? So Europeans love to talk about Greece and Greek civilization being the greatest. It is not. Did you know that when the Romans, right, conquered Greece, right, Italy, when they conquered Greece, okay, that people with lighter skin thought of themselves as unattractive? Okay, so there's one point in time in history when people with lighter skin thought themselves to be unattractive because the standard of beauty at the time was black skin. Okay, but this wasn't a standard based off of manipulation, enslavement, the degrading of a people. It was because when Europeans, I should say Romans, when they conquered Kemet or Egypt, right, the hot sun, again, gave them a lot of issues, a lot of problems, a lot of skin cancer, all that stuff, right? They were very pale, all right? So there's a difference. All right. The Africans and dark skinned people didn't say you're ugly. They despised their pale skin because of what the sun was doing to them. Okay. So you guys can read this. Again, it's called From Understanding Evolution. This is Berkeley University. Again, I'm giving you academic sources so you guys can go and read yourself. Okay? This is academic sources. All right, this is well researched, well studied. Okay? And again, you can go to also Penn State, right? UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, which also talks about that. Okay? You can also go to, this is the Science Journal, science.org. See? Two different phenotypes, two different skin complexion, both black, both Africans. Okay. So, but because we've been conditioned to view, with particularly say Africans, as just being dark-skinned black people, because what the racist European did was choose one particular group of African of a certain phenotype, okay, and use them as a model for all Africans, and to demonize their phenotype. All right. So when we talk about racism and bigotry, it started with white people and it continues with white people. So I'm no bigot. I'm not biased. I just love who I am as a black person, and I love black people. Same way white people love white people and love themselves as a white person is the way black people need to love themselves and each other as black people. But white people do not want black people to love themselves as how they love each other. Why? Because then black people will have to go into protection mode to protect each other, protect our children, to reject European standard of beauty, okay, and to learn the truth about who we are, right? To write true history, in which I give credit to a lot of white scholars who speak the truth and tell the truth. These are the white people that I want in my circle. Okay, who will speak the truth. But sadly, there's not too many of them. And when I say a lot, meaning a lot more than how they used to be. Particularly if they are academically honest, okay, scientifically honest, anthropologically honest, then yeah, that's well one in my corner. Okay. So, I was going to talk about Hannibal Barber, right? A black man who they constantly portray as some white dude, despite the evidence. And again, you start to see the term being used as sub-Saharan African. So Hannibal of Carthage cannot be a black African when the history clearly says so. Those who have written about him historically says he was a black man. But again, European love to separate, okay, so-called North Africa from, below the what they call sub-Saharan Africa. There is no such thing as sub-Saharan Africa. It's just Africa. Do people in the South here in America, are they called Southern American? No. Okay, they come up with all these terms to manipulate us, to steal our history, to lie to us, to deceive us, and then want to call black people like myself who understand the truth, who speak the truth, who will not be silenced, who don't believe their lies, racist. That's what they do. This is white people play a game of dark projection. It is naturally who they are. It is in their nature to be the way that they are. And I understand that. Okay? And instead of trying to be better, they'll double down on their lies and their deception. Right? They'll double down on their covert operations to disenfranchise, discredit, to destroy black people, black men in particular, black families. They'll move in an underhanded way to steal black land, black people houses, homes. Okay? They have made themselves our natural predators. Okay? And we got to fight back. We got to fight back. We cannot continue to allow them to engage in the behavior that they've been engaging with us for decades. We must take a stand. And to all the good white people, stand with us so we can truly make this world a better place. Because they're not doing a good job of it. Okay, so on that note, let me show you guys this. This is a book. It's called, as I said, this is a book. Here the car honking. It's called Bible Myths and Their Parallel in Other Religion, being a comparison of the Old and New Testament myth and miracles with those of heathen nation of antiquity, considering also their origin and meaning. And there's another book you should get. It's called Canaanite and Israelite belief system, right? Which talks about the original belief system, that they worship many gods and how they went to war over their gods. And if you conquer another nation, then you absolve their God. You take some of the good thing of their God and you put it with your God to make your God more powerful. Okay? All right, so I want you to listen to this again. And just to put this in some context, this book was written, the copyright in 1882. Okay? All right. So, and again, this is the 4th edition. Right? So, listen. He who knows only one religion knows none. Professor Max Muller. The same thing which is now called Christian religion existed amongst the ancient. They have begun to call Christian the true religion which exists before. St. Augustine. Okay, and you guys you can find it online too. You can find the volumes of St. Augustine. I think there's like 6-volume works, right? So you can find the complete editions online for free. Okay, it's a lot of reading, right? Our love for what is old, our reverence for what our fathers used, makes us keep still in the church and on the very altar, closed symbol which would excite the smile of the Oriental and lead him to wonder why we send missionaries to his land while cherishing his faith in ours. Okay? Again, show you that Christianity took from other belief system as well as Judaism, right, to create their belief systems. Okay? I'm just going to read the introduction. Okay? You guys can, again, just Google it. Google Bible myths and other parallels in other religion. And you can download it for free. You can find it at usarchive.org, which is a great website, as well also the Gutenberg Project website, which have rare books that if you were to go buy them on Amazon, they're either out of print or they cost thousands of dollars. Okay? See, they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to have knowledge. Okay, because your very own Bible tell you that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. They have become too religious and too superstitious. If you claim that your Bible is the word of God, then you should take heed to what I just said. Okay? Seek knowledge. Not religion, not superstition. Seek knowledge. Okay? So, introduction. The idea of publishing the work here presented did not suggest itself until a large portion of the material it contains had been accumulated for the private use and personal gratification of the author. In pursuing the study of the Bible myths, facts pertaining, therefore, in a condensed form, seem to be greatly needed, and nowhere to be found. Widely scattered through hundreds of ancient and modern volumes, most of the content of this book may indeed be found, but any previous attempt to trace exclusivity exclusively the myths and legend of the Old and New Testament to their origin, published as a separate work, is not known to the writer of this. Many able writers have shown our so-called sacred scriptures to be unhistorical. Remember when this was written, right? In the 1800s. Many able writers have shown our so-called sacred scriptures to be unhistorical and has pronounced them largely legendary. But they left the matter evidently aware of the great extent of the subject lying beyond. As Thomas Scott remarks in his English Life of Jesus, how these narrative, i.e., the New Testament narrative, unhistorical as they have been shown to be, came into existence. It is not our business to explain, and once again, at the end of the task, as to the beginning and throughout, we must empathetically disclaim the obligation to pursue the subject from the point at which it is abandoned by this and many other distinguished writers has been the labor of the author of this volume for a number of years. The result of this labor is herewith submitted to the readers, but not without a painful consciousness of its many imperfections. The work naturally begins with the Eden myth and is followed by a consideration of the principal Old Testament legends showing their universal excuse me here, universality. If I'm not saying that right, you got to excuse me. Origin and meaning. Next will be found the account of the birth of Jesus Christ, which his history until the close of his life upon earth, showing in connection therewith the universality of the myth of the virgin born, crucified, and resurrected Savior. Okay? Again, you can go read the book, The 16 Crucified Savior Before Jesus Christ. Okay? You will see a lot of similarities. Okay? Virgin births, died, was resurrected 3 days later. All right? Again, this was before the New Testament, written thousands of years before. Okay? So, before showing the origin and meaning of the myth, which is done in chapter 39, we have considered the miracles of Jesus Christ, the Eucharist, baptism, the worship of the Virgin, Christian symbols, the birthday of Jesus Christ, birthday of Christ Jesus, the doctrine of the Trinity, why Christianity prospered, and the antiquity of pagan religions, besides making a comparison to the legendary history of Krishna and Jesus, Buddha and Jesus, and go Google that. The concluding chapters relates to the question, what do we really know about Jesus? In the words of Professor Max Mueller, The Science of Religion, a comparison of all religion of the world in which none can claim a privileged position will no doubt seem to many dangerous and reprehensibly, because ignoring the peculiar reverence which everyone, down to the mere fetish worshippers, feel for his own religion and for his own God. Let me say then at once that I have myself had shared these misgivings, but that I have tried to overcome them, because I would not and could not allow myself to surrender either what I hold to be true, or what hold still dearer than truth, the right of testing truth, nor do I regret it. I did not say the science of religion is all gain. No, it entails losses and losses of many things which we hold dear. But this I will say, that as far as my humble judgment goes, as I said, judgment, using the Kohong, it does not entail the loss of anything that is essential to true religion, and that if we strike the balance honestly, the gain of immeasurable greater than the loss. All truth is safe and nothing else is safe. And he who keeps back the truth or withhold it from men from motive of expediency is either a coward or a criminal or both. But little beyond the arrangement of this work is claimed as original. Idea phases and even whole paragraphs have been taken from the writing of others, and in most, if not in all cases, acknowledged. But with the thought in mind of the many hours of research, this book may save the student in this particular line of study, with the consciousness of having done for others that which I would have been thankful to have found done for myself, and more than all, with the hope that I may in some ways help to hasten the day when the midst of superstition, okay, shall be dispelled by the light of reason. With all its defects, it is most cheerfully committed to its fate by the author, right? This is Boston, Massachusetts, again, 1882, right? So you know how they like to sanitize Martin Luther King, and again, you talk about the Tower of Babel. I just spoke about that, the Exodus from Egypt. Again, go and get this book. Okay, this is a gem. For those of you so-called Christians or Christian TI who believe in Jesus Christ, and you want to know the truth, do some research. Okay, and don't go to these Bible apologetic sites. Go to scholars who look through these ancient sacred documents and read these books from the 1800s, from the 1700s, the 1600s, which you have these scholars, again, who had access to these sacred documents because they've just found some of them. For example, the so-called Naharabi scrolls, right? That was found, I believe, in the 1940s, which had the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas Iscariot, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. These are all books that they left out of the Bible, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we don't know, okay? And this is why knowledge is key. Gaining information is key. Doing research is key. And there's so much available, so much truth available that, we're in the age of information. And if you want to continue to live in ignorance, then, that will be to your own undoing. Okay? So as I talk about Dr. Martin Luther King and how, how he has been sanitized in the eyes of white people, okay? But even Dr. King knew the truth. Even Dr. King knew the truth, okay? So his thesis, right, because he went to seminary school, theology school, right? And his thesis was on the influence of the mystery religions on Christianity. Right? This is Dr. King. This is the stuff that they won't tell you about this. Okay? Now, again, one thing we must understand that when you go look at these old documents, you will not find the word God. And please find the translation that does not include the English names. Okay? I mean, it's written in English, but when it comes to, there's no J. They don't use the word God, they use the word Lord. Okay, because again, God is a relatively new term, a new word. Okay, and it's German in its origin. They never use the word God, they use the word Lord, Lord of Lords, Kings of Kings. Right? Understand that. Okay? So, again, it says King wrote this paper for the course development of Christian ideas taught by Davis. The essay examined how Christian developed as a distinct religion with a set of central tenets and how it was influenced by those pagan religion it assimilated. Okay? King's repeat material from an earlier paper, a study of Mithraism, right? But he extends the discussion here. Excuse me. But he extended the discussion here to influence of other mystery religion. Okay? In which he says David gave the essay an A stating this is very good, and I'm glad to have your conclusion. It is not so much that Christianity was influenced by mystery cults or borrowed from them, but that in the long process of history, this religion developed it. As you said, these religions developed it. Christianity is the expression of the longing for people for light, truth, and salvation, security. Again, Dr. King, right, in his paper, talks about how Christianity borrowed from other religion. All right. And again, we've been taught that these people in the Bible, they are real. No, it is not. It's based off myths, stories to tell you certain things to help you along in your journey through life. It was not meant to be taken of these people as being literal. There is no literal God in the sky who oversees everything. Okay? So you will say God, I say the creative male and female divine energy, creative energy, or creative force. Okay? So I don't call what you call God, God. What I say is that the creative forces, male and female, okay? This is why you have species that are male and female. All right? Or you have species, and within those species, you have male and female. It's a duality. If you read earlier versions of the Bible, when God created Adam and Eve, he created, even in your very own Bible, it tells you that God created Adam and Eve. In one version, God created Adam and Eve at the same time. Okay? And then in another version, it says God created man first, put man to sleep, took rib from man, and created woman. Okay? There's two accounts of the creation in Genesis, and there's also two accounts of the creation of man. Go read it, highlight the difference. Do a comparison. Okay? Because there were also Bibles will tell you that when God created Adam and Eve, he created one being, but that one being had two distinct personality. Also, once the front was male and the back was female. And then he separated them. Okay? All right, because Adam was a hermaphrodite before God separated the male from the female. Bet you didn't know that, did you? No, these things are not meant to be taken literally. It's supposed to teach you life lessons, right? It's supposed to give you a somewhat code of ethics to live by. But what the Europeans have done in crafting their version, whether it be the Old Testament or the New Testament, right, is to create their version of these ancient myths. And it's not a good version. It is a version that they created in order to make money and to control people. This is why you have a lot of things that's in the Bible that are just not good. It's like a horror show. Okay? So the thing about the Jews being in Egypt and the Pharaoh killing the firstborn. No, that was Israelite cultural practices. When they were worshiping the many gods, they would sacrifice their firstborn. Okay? And when they were in Egypt, Kemet as the Hyksos, right? They were sacrificing Egyptian Kemetic kids. Right? They were sacrificing the goats, in which the Egyptian held as sacred animals, just like you have in Hinduism, the cow being a sacred animal. Okay, so unless you understand ancient history and ancient cultures, at least have some sort of understanding. This is why it's important, like I said, to go read about ancient culture, not from a religious aspect, but from a historical aspect. Okay? So, just want to leave you guys with that. All right? So, don't let them, at least you guys know, when they try to sanitize Dr. King as being some Christian and some, Dr. King knew. He knew exactly how to use the Bible. Okay? Not as some factual, truthful book, but one that can be used to teach certain things, to inspire in certain ways. But he also knew that book was the result of many different cultural, religious belief that they took from, and they create this version of it. Okay? So, with that being said, I guess I will speak to you guys on the next Target Individual program, Target Individual Experience.